Hello, welcome to another video, and this one's quite an important one, and I hate sort of having these videos headlines with the 5 best and 10 ways and all that sort of thing, but get a lot of questions relating to back pain, and often when they're creating programs for a lot of things, there's obviously several there's several key movements, and that are the ones that are the things that need to be done ongoing, probably forever, because they're the ones that often are the trigger behind the pain. So this video sort of is trying to explain how I would, not always, but most times, find that these are the most effective exercises ongoing, and that they're the key ones that come up across all types of back pain, not just bulging discs, but other types of back pain as well. So the first one I'm going to show you is sort of, most people won't regard it as an exercise, but it's teaching people to sit. And you can see here, this sitting position I'm in is the common sitting position we see people. All right, and this is where the discs in the back are being pushed out, and I'm also creating hip problems by sucking my butt under. So hip problems, spinal problems, there's just nothing good about that. Thoracic mobility is restricted. I'm also, notice how I'm sitting a bit forward on the chair. I'm not sitting right back into the chair, and you'll see that if one of the first things you want to correct someone is identifying these poor postural repetitive movements they may be making. So one of the first things I tell people to sort of sit properly in a chair, sit your butt back into the chair, and if you notice how I tilted my pelvis forward when I did that, so to try and get so if I sit in that poor posture, and this is where that butt's sucking under, so that's where I'm ruining my hip mobility, my core control, and my discs are going to get aggravated. All I need is a lot of repetitions with that. So to get out of this, you can see me here, I'm pushing my hips back, so I'm driving an anterior tilt with my pelvis. So my pelvis is tilting forward. All right, so instead of sucking under, it's tilting forward, which then creates a nice curve in my back. I notice that I drove it from here and not from lifting up from there, which is one mistake I often see with correction of sitting posture. All right, so that's the very first exercise, believe it or not, teaching people how to sit. Because if sitting isn't something they do a lot of, say they're in a labourer of some kind, tradesman, then I may not consider that. But most people, it is a part of their problem. One exercise that I would regularly use very early on, especially when there's a lot of pain, is teaching the person how to find a neutral pelvis in this 4-point position. The 4-point position is good because there's no compression on the spine. They can really lengthen the spine out because the gravity's not squashing them for a change. And the beauty of this is they can learn how to get that pelvic tilting that I was showing you a minute ago, which is what I was just doing then. Once they've got that pelvic tilting under control, then we can bring in integration with opposite arm and leg like what we do when we walk. But this is really like learning how to get glute control when on extension, but also when it comes in, to not lose when the hips in full flexion, not to round out here. So they're learning how to keep this neutral position of the spine here whenever they're moving their leg. All right, so this is a very underrated exercise, but it's a very important one for when they have a lot of pain. And the other reason, like apart from not getting compression, is this position in the prone position, prone means face down, allows the discs in the back, like gravity, to work in our favour this time. So when it works against us when we're sitting and standing, basically the discs from gravity just drop away from the sciatic nerve. So the sciatic nerve running all the way down there, when we're sitting in that poor position before, it touches the nerve, and that's when you get a lot of pain. So just this position in 4-point position is a great way to actually relieve the disc pain. All right, so that's that's 2 of the key exercises I would use in nearly all cases of back pain. It would be one version of those or another I would be using all the time. The next one is the deadlift, or really just learning to bend. So this is where we start to see, just to magnify this a bit more so we can see it a bit better. This is where we have to teach the person how to bend correctly, because often it's the bending position that's the trigger of their pain. So I don't even need them to pick anything up. in the beginning, I just need them to learn how to get a good bending position using their hips. So they're keeping that neutral position of their spine. Their posture's nice. You can sort of see, yeah, there's a straight line, there's a little curve there, probably could be a bit better. Keeping their legs very straight. All of the movements done from the hips. So the hips going all the way back and then all the way forward. And they're really learning to save their spine in a bending position. This on its own will be stopping them from irritating their discs all the time or compressing their spine if they have S or J problems. The bending position is just so important, even for hip troubles as well, because often there's this is the poor position, the poor bending we'd see. This is where we'd see people would typically bend over, and that's where the discs are being thrust out the back again. And also from the hip losing the strength in the glutes, the femur being pushed forward. There's just a lot of bad things happen from this. All right, so learning how to get good hip extension, and also maintaining thoracic extension at the same time. And then once they've got the coordination, the stability all down, then that's when you're bringing in the strength phase to make it last longer. So it's no good if they know how to do it, but it doesn't last for very long, and the minute they fatigue, it goes back to the old way. So this is where we need them to learn how to do those things. So far, the sitting position changed, getting basic core stability in the prone position to reduce inflammation, learning to bend correctly. Once we've got the traditional bending down, then we want to teach them how to do single leg stance, and this is where a lot more glute hip control is involved. Obviously stability and balance is a big factor as well, but we really develop considerable amount of strength with the correct bending action, and again it'll save their spine from being irritated. And can you see how in nearly every case of back pain and hip pain I'm going to have some version of these at some point. So that was from side on, you can see it was almost identical to the two-leg one, and you see from front on how even I'm sort of struggling to maintain a bit of balance there. What happened there, that's where the body sort of rocking and rolling in this frontal plane. This is the first exercise we see this frontal plane control being required, and obviously through the lower limb, the alignment of the leg, and that's where a big part of the hips and the glutes are working in combination with the feet. So this is the first time we sort of see the feet involved in a big way. All right, so there's 4 of our key exercises that we would always sort of need to come across with when we're talking about hip and back pain. The person who starts to develop these and gets more efficient and stronger and with more endurance, their symptoms dramatically decrease and they start to really become better than ever before. Something I might use is thoracic mobility. Some people really struggle in this area. Not everyone, again, is probably not as much as the first 4 things that we've seen, but it definitely is a factor. This is a simplified version of a mobility drill I use from time to time. Probably this next one, the glute stretch, is more of a factor, I would say. This type of stretch, not everyone can do this. There's just too much stiffness there, so there might be various versions we might try, but there's definitely something to consider, and it comes up probably 90% of the time as a problem. All right, so in most programs I'm sort of seeing something around here that we have to address. All right, so we've got sitting, we've got bending, we've got single leg bending, we've got this mobility at the thoracic, mobility at the glutes and the hips. And then the last thing we probably need to do, again there's a lot of other exercises, not they're the only ones. I'm just sort of really prioritizing to the ones that become key exercises, key problem areas. This would be where we start to integrate. This is where we bring the upper body into it for the first time, and this is really developing a bit of the posterior sling in a simplified version, again with the thoracic mobility, and really learning how to integrate. This mimics the timing required in walking actions. This is the version similar to before with the single leg stance, where all we've changed here is brought in the upper body into it. All right, but this is where we're sort of again learning to get the hip action bending backward, so the glutes on the stance leg are working, but really getting the sling involved with the opposite arm. So that sling's important because it passes through the abdominal region and stops any prevents that sort of lateral shearing and compression that we saw from the front on view of the single leg one before. All right, so there's my key exercises for bulging discs, but also other various types of back pain. There's obviously some considerations and specifics for various people, but if I was to prioritize to my big exercises, that would be it. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed that video. Check the description underneath because I placed links to a lot of articles with additional information and the movements I may have left out that are obviously very important as well, but this gives people a better understanding of the things they need to do. All right, so I hope you enjoy that, and we'll see you in our next video.